Make sure to check out David Pakman Show coffee and all sorts of other gear at davidpakman.com/gear. There's a new bill which would force people to give DNA and genetic testing information to their employers. And because of all the attention that healthcare reform and the Russia scandals are getting, there hasn't been much coverage of this. This is HR 1313, called the Preserving Employee Wellness Programs Act. And it actually relates to something we're doing here on the show. I'll explain that in a second. The bill would force people to comply if their employer wants them to undergo genetic testing for so-called workplace wellness programs, and otherwise they'd have to pay fines of up to thousands of dollars. Making employees do this is actually currently prohibited under the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as by a 2008 federal law, which protects genetic privacy and non-discrimination. And the previous law specifically says employer health plans cannot require or request genetic tests, let alone requiring employees to take them, because you could look at someone's genetic information, predispositions to certain conditions or diseases, and make them pay more or maybe less for insurance depending on the results. And under this same law, if employees do choose to voluntarily give their employers genetic test results, companies would only be able to receive that information in a sort of an anonymous, aggregated way without being able to say, okay, here's the specific information for a particular employee. This bill proposed by Republicans would undo all of that. It would allow companies to coerce employees into giving them their DNA. And employers can already conduct health risk assessments and health screenings to decide on how much to charge for healthcare. That's already allowed. But if this new legislation passes, genetic test results could be used to figure out how much do you charge employees for healthcare. Even if an employer doesn't provide health coverage but has wellness programs, they would still hypothetically be able to penalize employees who refuse to give them their genetic information by taking the money of the fine out of their paycheck. There's obviously privacy concerns as well. Employers almost always will hire outside companies to do screening for these types of programs. And now you've got third parties that would have the genetic data on employees. The bill was approved by the House Committee on Education and Workforce. All Republicans voted for it. All Democrats voted against it. This is some of the most intimate personal information which people should be able to keep private. And the rationale for forcing people to hand this over is not in the best interest of the employee. It's so that employers can pinch pennies with healthcare costs and charge certain people more. The party of freedom and liberty and individualism wants to pass a bill which would consider the withholding of genetic information from your employer to be a violation not of anybody else's rights, but your employer's rights. What happened, Pat, to removing regulations and deregulating business? This is quite the opposite. This is a new provision. Of course, it's one that is not good for employees and is really, really good for employers.
I think this is one of those examples also of Donald Trump's antics kind of distracting away from the real damage that Republicans are doing, because something like this doesn't have the same appeal to a broad audience as Donald Trump saying something ridiculous at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we have to keep an eye on it because this will impact people and does go against consumer rights and the rights of employees.
We're going to be doing DNA tests. So this is how it relates to the show. We've ordered, and I did over the weekend, I spit into a cup, a test tube, and mailed it in. And Pat, where are you on it, by the way? I'm guessing you haven't done it quite yet.
I haven't started the process yet. If you want, I can grab the kit and show the audience.
Yeah, sure. That would be cool. So we're going to be reporting on our lineage. And I think the most interesting thing would be if I have something unexpected in my background. I sort of assume that I'm almost exclusively Ashkenazi Jewish by ethnicity, and it'd be interesting if there's something else in there. But people have emailed me and said, David, aren't you worried that now a company is going to have your genetic information? And my answer was, not really, but I can understand the concern. Are you worried about that, Pat?
No, I don't get too paranoid about that sort of thing. This is the box that it comes in, and I guess you're supposed to spit into this thing and send it in. I know that I'm Irish and Lebanese, but I think there's a few other things in there in my background as well. So we'll see. We'll get the official results pretty soon.
Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks, and then we will do a segment and figure out what's what.